The Cub is, always has been, and probably always will be my favorite Bad Cat amp. There's something magical about it in that it is so simplistic in its design. It's a simple single channel amp that just does so much. The Cub PCB amp is fantastic. It's absolutely amazing, and I still play it to this day. But we are now introducing our revamped, relooked, and reimagined version of the hand-wired Cub, the Cub V. Basically taking everything we learned in that process when we built the PCB amps and stuck them all in this thing, and this thing is absolutely freaking amazing. My involvement in Bad Cat goes back to the Cub, which was in 2010. I spent some time going through the NAMM show, going in and out of every booth at the show, playing everything in sight, and eventually wandered into the Bad Cat booth, and I ended up falling in love with this thing called the Bad Cat Cub. So I got in my car and I drove down to James's shop. I said, what does the guy have to do to buy a Bad Cat Cub? And he said, give me your credit card. So I gave him my credit card right then and there. So I started becoming a regular, and I would bring amps from my collection, and I would show him, we'd talk about stuff. And one day he mentioned to me, he said that I'm thinking of selling this company. So I'm the only guy that ever tried to buy an amp and ended up buying the entire amp company along the way. That's how freaking smart I am. But all this came about because I was in love with the Cub. And that amp just absolutely slayed me how good it was. When Mark Sampson came over from Matchless early on in the inception of Bad Cat, the Cub was originally the first Bad Cat amp. It had a volume and this thing called the focus spectrum switch. And what that did is that sent the signal through the bass and treble control, which gave you more of a spectrum of tones. You can get like a brighter sound, a darker sound. It gave you more flexibility. It was sort of combining what was going on with the Spitfire and what was going on with the Lightning, and putting them together in one amplifier. At some point, I felt that there was an improvement to be made there. What I was hoping for was that the depth control and the bass and treble could be operational at the same time, because the Cub 3 kept it so that you had to use one or the other. That was a huge hit. Everybody loved it. And then, of course, fast forward about 3 or 4 years down the road, we went back to the heritage and the history of the company to design the Cub V. So the Cub V is available in a 15-watt EL84 version, a 40-watt EL34 version. They're both available in heads and 112 combos. There was no doubt in my mind that we needed to go back to the original heritage of the company, which is a hand-wired point-to-point amp company. It's the purest form of amp building. They're very easy to fix in the event that you drop one off a truck. There's a purity to them that's difficult to describe. This thing sounds amazing, and I think its construction is certainly part of it. So the eyes are back, and as long as I'm alive, they're not going anywhere. The two master volumes that we talked about doing on the original Cub, this in a gig situation is indispensable, because you can set one for rhythm volume, one for lead volume, and so this allows you to separate amplitude from gain. Also, we kept the EF86 in V1 and 12AX7 in V1, so you can switch between them. The depth control is something that was one of Mark's designs. So if you're playing like a particularly bright guitar, you want to add a little bit of body and depth to it, you click a couple clicks to the right, fattens it up. If you're playing a Gibson or maybe a double coil that is sort of fat to begin with, you can back that off. It takes pedals incredibly well. Buffered effects loops, you can run all the modern digital stuff. It's very versatile. There's so much to play with between it being dirty and it being clean. It allows you to play the amp as much as you're playing your guitar. It's just a good workhorse. Like David Grissom says about his DGT guitar, he calls it a meat and potatoes guitar. This is a meat and potatoes amp, for sure. So the Cub V is finished, it is out, it is shipping. I've got 13 years of my life wrapped up in this thing, and I cannot wait to hear from all of you about how much you love it. I hope you love it as much as I do.